Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest in studio today, Mr. Adam Ibbotson, is the superintendent of Maroa-Forsyth Schools. Good to see you, Mr. Ibbotson. How you doing? I think I've got your mic off. Can you check and see if the button underneath? Is it on?
Let's see.
There we go. You're good.
I am?
You are good. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
As we do when I'm at basketball games, don't touch anything. We just
Oh,
leave it alone.
leave it alone,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, exactly. How you doing? Doing well?
Really well. Yep.
Good. Good to hear. Thanks for coming in and talking with us. And,
Sure.
you know, probably the big topic of conversation with you and your peers here the next month or so, Mr. Ibbotson, is going to be school report card data.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are things looking in Maroa?
Yeah, really good. Really successful school report card every year after October 30th. The State Board of Education releases out the summative designations for each of the schools in the state of Illinois. So there's an exemplary level, which is the top 10% of all schools in the state of Illinois in that category. So they're broken into two groups. There's high schools, and then everyone else, elementary and middle school, junior highs, are all in the same boat along the way.
So lumped into one.
Yep. And then each of those schools have different indicators that feed into that overall score. So our high school this year for the fourth year in a row was exemplary. Top 10% of all the high schools in the state of Illinois, with no underperforming subgroups in terms of the assessments. So that feeds in with ACT data, that feeds in with student attendance, that feeds in with climate surveys, science assessment, all of those things. And graduation rate is really the biggest piece, along with freshmen on track. So our school board meeting on Tuesday, we had each of our administrators share about essentially their graphic. If you go on to the Illinois School Report Card website, you can look at the accountability pieces to see how we essentially stack up and compare. So really proud of the high school. Graduation rate, really strong on the proficiency numbers for ELA. Okay numbers, I would say, on math, pretty good, but some improvements there. And then our freshmen on track numbers are really strong as well. So they came out with an overall composite score about 93 out of the possible 100. So really proud of that score. And they were exemplary for the fourth time in a row here. Our middle school was exemplary, excuse me, a year ago. And they drop back into the commendable range. And it's interesting when you go and look at the indicators for improvement, the graduation rate for high schools is 50% of that composite number. So if your graduation rate is strong, then that's a big chunk of your pie, essentially. Whereas our middle school and elementary school, their same level of that is based on student growth. So average growth in the state of Illinois is a 50th percentile, not a percent, but a percentile. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor and say, well, you're in the 75th percentile. That means that you're higher than 75% of everybody else, but there's still 25% that are above you. Average growth in the state of Illinois is 50%. So what they do is they take the kid from the year before, same class, same test, same score, and compare your growth of those like students from year one to year two.
So it's not even the same set of students.
It is the same set of students if they have the same test score and they took the same test.
Oh, okay.
So if you and I were both sixth graders last year and we took the sixth grade math IAR test, they're going to compare our score in seventh grade to see which one of us grew the most. If you grew by 40 points and I grew by 10 points, you're going to get placed in a higher growth percentile than I am. So our kids really were above the state average for growth in the upper 50s for math, and then the upper 60s, almost 70 for ELA. That wasn't as high a growth as what we had the year before in the middle school. We were in the 80s. So we had more growth the year before, but still met all the proficiency targets.
Well, and I wonder, and not to say there's a cap in growth, but like, to have a perfectly exponential trajectory, that's got to be difficult to maintain, right?
Well, I think it's difficult to maintain, but it also is not a clear target. So if it changes and shifts what gets you the 99th percentile down to the first percentile, the proficiency targets make sense. Hey, you need to hit this percentage of your students meeting and exceeding. That makes sense to me. And here's what the test looks like. If you're trying to lay out the growth percentile, you're doing a comparison across everyone, which is a little bit harder to hit on. So it's challenging to track a little bit to know where you stack up because you're waiting on everyone else's pieces. So there becomes this challenge of trying to meet kids where they're at. Our high achievers, like you alluded to, continue to challenge them because they're going to be plotted against other kids who are high achievers that year. Middle of the road kiddos, and then our kids who struggle maybe a little bit, that's all lumped together. So we spent a lot of time talking about student growth percentiles, how that calculation is done. And then the science test became an accountability and not just a participation grade this year. So really kind of digging into that for our middle school.
Yeah, sure.
Grade school wise, similar. We were commendable at the grade school level again. Strong growth in reading and in math. We were above 50 percentile growth for each of those. Met all the proficiency targets for both of those pieces. We'll dig into some science pieces. Chronic absenteeism is not as good as I'd like it to be. So student attendance is important, but still for the region and the state, we're well above the average for student attendance.
Good. Yeah, for sure. You know, and that's one of those things where, you know, I know that the student attendance is such a heavy weighted piece of the report card. You know, it makes sense. You want to really dial in on that. What do you see in there? I mean, is there a trend of why that's happening you're seeing?
So the question was asked by another reporter, said, okay, why does Maroa-Forsyth have such a strong attendance record compared to other area schools? The question was posed as, what's the secret sauce? And I think a lot of it is you've got to give motivation for kids to come to school. That starts with relationships with their teachers. There's got to be opportunities. Maybe the classroom isn't your thing. Maybe there's something that's an extracurricular that draws you there. Maybe it's some of the classes that you take, or maybe it's going to Heartland Tech to do a career and tech ed piece. Maybe it's doing our transfer academy with Richland that motivates you. Maybe it's the motivation of your friends, motivation of your classmates. There's got to be something that draws you to say, hey, I want to be at school that day. And I think Maroa-Forsyth, for a school of 330 kids, we do a great job of offering a variety of those connection points to where kids feel connected. And if they do, they show up, whether they really want to, but there's something that they don't want to miss out on. And we've got to find ways that I want to be there so I don't miss out on things that are happening at school.
Some places call it your why. You know? Yeah. Why are you there?
For sure.
Absolutely. You know, and I wonder how is the report card received in Maroa? Because I know there's some communities where, you know, it's a contentious thing. It's you know, they're combative with the school, and we're not doing this well, and they're cherry picking data points, you know, to point out the bad things, quote unquote, going on. How's the report card received in your community?
They're supportive. I think our community takes a lot of pride in our schools. They also want to be exemplary. Like there's that, you know, we talk about excellence and pride all the time. That excellence is something that's not perfection. You're constantly striving for that. And we want to take pride in being the best in what we do, whether it's taking a test or we're playing football or we're in Scholastic Bowl or we're in the musical. We want to take pride in what we do. And I do think that our board does a great job of balancing. They understand that there's parts of this that are hard to control or hard to really kind of navigate, but also challenging our administrators who help lead our teachers to be the best that they can. And I felt like there were things that we see internally, because we all have that drive of how can we get to that exemplary level, or how do we maintain it? And our building principals do a good job with our building leadership teams and our staff of trying to do that. So I feel it's a sense of pride. I think they continually want to push to be the best. And I think that's a healthy balance.
Sure. Again, Mr. Adam Ibbotson is the superintendent of Maroa-Forsyth Schools, our guest here in studio this morning. Talking school report card, Mr. Ibbotson. Anything else out of the report card that was a positive for you that you liked?
I think the motivation of our staff, like taking the next steps in this. It's our first year doing the ACT. This will be year number 2. We'll start to look at some cohort data.
What's that mean?
Essentially looking at, I'm a freshman and I took the ACT, then I'm going to take it as a sophomore and I'll see how we did as a sophomore. And then we'll take it as a junior, and we'll be able to follow them from freshman, sophomore to junior.
Is that a thing they're doing now?
Yeah. So we take it as a pre-ACT as a 9th grader and as a 10th grader and as an 11th grader.
I don't remember doing that.
Our 9th and 10th graders, we had almost 80% of them meet and exceed the standards on the pre-ACT. So we're excited about that, but also some professional development we're going to do to dig into those scores about how can we look at kind of pushing the needle to get to that exemplary level. We're doing some training with that in December.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking as a staff in our strategic planning, what can we do to continue on with rigor and relevance of our curriculum?
Gotcha. No, areas of concern. You mentioned some math scores concerns.
Yeah.
Still a little student attendance issues. Anything else?
I
here?
think we're focusing on, now that science is really an accountability piece, taking a deeper dive into the science assessment scores, and it's given to our 5th graders and it's given to our 8th graders, and then our juniors take it.
What do you mean by it's an accountability?
So in years past, if your kids just took the science test, essentially you got all the pieces of that, essentially all the points if you just participated in it.
Oh, okay.
Now there's proficiency benchmarks that have been added to this that have changed this year. So the first time they've put like a number of, you need to meet this score in order to get the proficiency level. So that's something that's brand new that we're kind of digging into to look at. It's brand new this year for everybody looking at it. So I think that's something we'll look at science a little more in detail than before. Chronic absenteeism, and then how do we continue to probe that growth and meeting kids where they're at with this?
I know there's some changes coming to the report card next year, potentially. You know much about that?
The listening tours, there's one today in O'Fallon. There was one in Bloomington last week. Essentially, they changed the cut scores in the state, and then they've also changed the levels. There used to be 5 levels that had different scales for the different tests we take. The state science assessment, the IAR, the ACT. Now they've unified those scales into 4 different levels. So there's a proficient, an above proficient, which means you're fine. And then there's 2 levels that are concerning below. This is the first year we've seen that unified scale. Next year, they're doing listening tours, which essentially means they're having kind of a town hall meeting where you can go participate and give feedback on proposed changes for how those scores create the exemplary designations. Factoring in growth to the high school level would be a major change. They've never had student growth. Looking at base indicators that are the same for everybody, and then amplifiers to that that feed into different subcategories of it, and changing how the schoolhouse, when I say the schoolhouse, that's kind of the infographic they show about how you're doing as a school. It'll be interesting to see, because there's been some pushback in these listening tours because it's not really clear how exactly to get to exemplary. Their big focus is that right now there's not a score that gets you exemplary. They just take the top 10%. And that's the line. It's arbitrary every year. So I think
it's arbitrary.
10%. Whoever the top 10% scores are, that number changes every year. Whoever's the top 10%. Take all the high schools in Illinois, the top 10% with their composite score, that makes you exemplary. So there are some schools who are doing a really good job that may not be exemplary.
Just because they're not in that top 10%.
They may be at 10.5%. So I think they're trying to look at what is an actual number or a mark that says, hey, I can get there. It's like taking a test and not knowing what the answer should be. So if you know that exemplary is this, well, give us a target to shoot for, and we're going to try to do that. So they're hoping to try to change that. And then commendable was this big glut in the middle. There's a large percentage that were commendable. Well, trying to stratify that and give that different levels in commendable, where there's a top end of that and then 2 other middle layers that stratify that out a little bit more.
Give me your feelings on the report card. Not your report card, just the report card in general.
So I like accountability. I like that there is a mark to shoot for. I like knowing what the metrics are, but it can't be what we measure everyone on for the good of your school. I feel like a one-time shot of a test is not a fair measure of everything that we do. So it's just one of a number of data factors. But the reality is, whenever the Herald and Review puts out their article Saturday or Sunday, and they're going to do an article about Maroa-Forsyth being exemplary at the high school level, we want to be exemplary. But there's a lot of other things that feed into that we should still focus on, I think, and not just be focused completely on the test. College and career readiness, thinking about kids into the workplace, people that are moving into trade schools, people are going to college, all those connections and extracurriculars. That's important.
I was going to say, should extracurriculars be weighted in this at all?
So there's not really a participation score that's in there.
Right.
I think they think about the absenteeism, like that connection to school is how they're kind of gauging that with a metric. It's hard to quantify that. But we do, Mr. Appleby does a percentage of our kids are in an extracurricular. And that number is north of 70% every year. 70% of the student body is involved in something. And I think that's part of the reason you see attendance be as strong as it is. So my feeling is I like the accountability because I think it gives us something to shoot for, striving for excellence, taking pride. but it can't be the only thing that we focus on.
Right.
There's a much more to the school experience than just that one-time test.
100%. Very good. Well, on that, Mr. Ibbotson, let's break here, my friend. Come back with some more. Mr. Adam Ibbotson is the superintendent of Maroa-Forsyth Schools. My guest in studio. More to come with him on the morning show.
WHOW.
LFB.org. Let's check the markets now on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Jim Taylor. Steady trade with that USDA crop report out at 11 o'clock this morning. December corn up 1/4, 441 3/4. March corn up 1/4, 455 3/4. May corn 463 3/4, up 3/4. November beans up a nickel, 11.37. January beans up 1 1/4, 11.48 1/4. March beans 11.58 1/4, up 1 1/2. December wheat up 4 1/2, 5.40 1/4. March wheat up 2 1/2, 5.54 3/4. December bean meal down 60 cents, 327.80. December bean oil up 47 cents, 50.72. Livestock trade, November feeders down 85 cents, 336.15. December live cattle down 52 cents, 218.47. December lean hogs 78.95, up 87 cents. Energy market, December crude oil up $1.37, 60.06. This is the RFD Radio Network.
Hey there, loyal listeners. This is your team at Regional Radio with a quick heads up. Some of the great programming you enjoy throughout the day is pre-recorded, but don't worry. We're still bringing you the same local content you love. Our legal team insisted we mention this, and hey, keeping the attorneys happy keeps us on the air. So thanks for tuning in and being part of the Regional Radio family. We're proud to bring local, compelling content to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
If the flu's got you down, the Warner Hospital and Health Services Walk-In Clinic can help you feel better fast. CEO Paul Skowron inviting you to make us your backup plan to better health. Find out more by clicking our icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
DeWittDailyNews.com is the area's leading local news source 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the latest local news, obituaries, police blotter, weather forecast, and more with no paywall. Head to DeWittDailyNews.com to get the local information you need to know.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, a good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Mr. Adam Ibbotson, superintendent of Maroa-Forsyth Schools, my guest in studio. Mr. Ibbotson, let's talk levy. How's the levy looking?
It's the season. So go from the budget and school report cards to the tax levy. So we presented a tentative levy to the board on Tuesday night on the 11th, and that levy will have a truth and taxation hearing that happens on December the 9th prior to the regular board meeting. So the tax levy is one of the main funding mechanisms that fund schools. So it's one of the buckets that fund schools. So you take the assessor and they do the equalized assessed value of all the properties in your school district. And then the school is really the biggest player essentially in terms of the tax revenue that comes in. Libraries, fire districts, various other pieces kind of fit into that. So we look at the historical averages and look at where our equalized assessed value growth goes. We're split in two counties. We have Macon County property, which is a lion's share of our levy, and then a little bit in DeWitt. So we work with both of the assessor's offices to get that equalized assessed value. Then once we go ahead and look at that EAV, there are different buckets within that fund schools: education fund, transportation, operations and maintenance, liability funds, fire safety. All those things have different amounts that get applied to your equalized assessed value.
So do you start at that level and then just add it all up and that becomes your levy then?
So we essentially start with what is that total EAV value that we're looking at as a predictor. And then we look at, there's limiting rates on some of those funds. So like, for example, in our education fund, it has a limiting rate for us of 2.3%. So we'll go through and look at each of those and look at the historical averages and look at how much, based on that total EAV, what is that dollar figure that we can levy for that number. Then you also have to take into consideration the bonds that you have to pay. That has to be baked into that because you're paying debt service on those bonds. So that can't change. So there's a bond schedule that goes. We've got the grade school bonds that are still on for us from that construction for a few more years. The middle school that just got constructed, and then a health life safety bond that they use to replace some roof stuff. So that all gets baked into the total tax rate. whenever they passed the referendum to do the middle school and that construction, they promised taxpayers to be between like 440 to 445 for that overall tax rate. We'll be right in that range for this time again in our total levy when we ask for that. We usually try to ask for a little bit more than 5% from the previous year for the levy growth to make sure we capture all of the growth in the district. So if there's new properties being built, more residential housing, we want to capture all of that. When it all shakes out, we'll actually end up around 442, 443 is kind of where that tax rate's been every year historically for the school district. So
this is a lot for the average person to take in. I've talked about it enough. I kind of get it.
Yeah.
How do you explain this to your community?
The way that I shake this out and think about it is your value of your property, that changes based on the assessor. And then if your property goes up, then the tax rate goes down. So when you think about if your property goes up, the rate may go down, but the amount you're paying was going to go up because what your house is worth goes up. Then we get a piece of that pie as a school district to fund schools from your property tax. And we have a certain percentage that comes to us once they go ahead and tax that.
Gotcha. Very good. Anything else on the levy before we move along here?
Again, just December 9th, we'll have the truth and taxation. If you go above 5% for the previous year's EAV, you have to have that hearing. So we'll have that notice up on our website and in the newspaper here soon and all that stuff.
Sounds good. Very good. Well, let's wrap up, Mr. Ibbotson, talking about fall activities. Big football game tomorrow.
Yeah, in the quarterfinals versus Florida tomorrow at Walter Boyd Field.
Where's Florida?
Florida is south of Effingham on Route 45, straight west of Alney and straight east of Salem, if you think about it that way.
Wow. Okay.
So down there kind of in Little Egypt a little bit. I grew up pretty close to Florida. This is the first time that they've been to the quarterfinals, so they're really excited. Our kids are playing great football, played awesome against Johnson City, went down to Chester in round 1. Really proud of Coach Jostis and the boys. We are really coming around and peaking at the right time.
Doing something special Saturday, right?
Yeah. So Chuck the Trojan, that's our mascot, played by one of our students, Matthew Clary. He has wanted to be Chuck the Trojan as the mascot since he's in middle school. And he ended up with some challenging health news this week with a diagnosis of leukemia. And he is beloved by our student body and by our staff. And we're taking some donations on Saturday to help the family with just traveling and the treatments and that schedule. Prognosis is good. We're hopeful along the way for him, but lifting up Matthew in our thoughts and prayers and his family and just trying to help out a little bit. We're all Trojans has kind of been our theme this year, that we're all together. And this is a way I think that we can kind of do that as a group.
Yep. Exemplify that standing.
Yeah, for sure.
Very good. About a minute, Mr. Ibbotson. Anything else going on fall activities wise?
Shout out to the volleyball team, sectional final, Sweet 16, awesome year. Middle school musicals ramping up here at the first part of December, the weekend of December the 5th in that area. We'll have the middle school musicals, Mary Poppins. We'll put more stuff about that. Just a great fall semester so far, and go Trojans on Saturday.
Yep, shameless plug. I was with the girls basketball program for our new venture, IL Sports Wire, here at the Heart Media Group. I was with them this week, and I'm going to go visit Coach Ennis and the boys next Wednesday.
It'll be time for the hardwood before you know it.
I can't believe it. We're already there. Mr. Ibbotson, how do folks keep up with all things Maroa-Forsyth schools?
Facebook is a great place for Maroa-Forsyth schools, and then also mfschools.net on the website.
That is Mr. Adam Ibbotson, superintendent of Maroa-Forsyth schools, our guest in studio this morning. The morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance.
WHOW.